Welcome to My Forever Home, the podcast. I'm Frances Cosway and I've helped hundreds of people create forever homes. I can't wait to share the journey with you. So let's start. Hello everyone and welcome to Your Forever Home, the podcast, the Kitchen Design Essential Season. Today we are going to be talking about outdoor kitchens, or I'm going to be talking about outdoor kitchens with you. Because I feel that they are something that's becoming more and more popular, particularly in the climate that we live in Australia. And they're almost just becoming, when there's a new build or a big renovation, our outdoor space is being considered so much more than perhaps what it was some time ago. And it's fabulous that people are taking their outdoors into serious consideration, because particularly in the climate that we live in, and especially in the northern parts of Australia and also across in Western Australia, that the climate just induces us to want to be outside and entertain outside. And we even have some clients who really have an outdoor space, and that really is where they eat almost every single night, just because the climate allows that to happen. And so when we are doing a renovation or a new build, thinking about your outdoor entertaining space is really important, because we want to make sure that it's cohesive, there is a real and natural flow between the indoors and the outdoors, and that there is, consideration taken into account in terms of how we need those spaces to work. And then ultimately, this outdoor entertaining space then has some sort of cooking requirement there. So whether it's a barbecue, and that could be a freestanding barbecue, it could be a built-in barbecue, and now more often than not we're seeing what we're terming outdoor kitchens, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. What is an outdoor kitchen? I mean, it could just be that you've got a barbecue and a sink. It could be that you've got a fridge and you've got some cabinetry, and you've really got then the ability to cook outside and prepare meals outside without really having to go inside, to get your utensils and to grab your oils and things like that. So as with everything, we need to plan, and we need to make sure that our needs are taken into consideration. And the other thing we need to be really mindful of, and I'm going to cover that off in this episode, is around the materials. So not all materials are suitable for outside, and I'm going to talk about some of those and some of the materials that are going to work for you. So let's kick off. That was sort of just why do we want to think about our outdoor kitchens? But when we're planning, the material considerations are quite important, because we need to make sure that there is some sort of continuity and flow, and so that we're making the right decisions both inside and outside, and it's not a really bad afterthought. So just like with any kitchen, and just like I've been talking about throughout the entire 21 episodes of the Kitchen Design Essential Season, we need to think about our needs. And so for our outdoor kitchen, that'll be, okay, so how do we entertain outside? And if you've already experienced entertaining outside, which most of us will have, that's a great place to start. What are the things that you would really like to have in your outdoor kitchen? What are some of the bugbears that you currently have that could be solved by having particular design features or having particular amenities there that are going to make your life easier for when you're entertaining outside? So what do you need access to that going inside is, drives you crazy, or it really affects the way that you're cooking outside? And I suppose you could start with the wish list, because, as with anything, outdoor kitchens are going to cost money. And so start with your wish list of, these are all the things, if money was no option and space was no option, what would be my ideal scenario? And then you'll have to claw back either from a space perspective or from a budgetary perspective. Now, what are some of the core things that I need? So perhaps you even flip it and start with the core things. So what do we really need outside? And I suppose the key one would be, in Australia and more in other parts of the world as well, it's going to be the barbecue. Really need the barbecue. Outdoor cooking, you may want, an area where, teppanyaki grill or whatever it is, where there's a lot of smoky cooking going on. So I know, for example, at my house, we generally cook steaks outside regardless of the weather, or just because we don't want to have all the smoke inside, even though we've got an amazing range hood. So, there will be really, really smoky cooking that will be done outside. Do you want a smoker? Smokers are becoming really big these days. Great way of cooking. They're becoming really, really popular. You might want to have one of those integrated because that is a very particular style of cooking that can't really be done inside. So think about the core things. Barbecue, maybe it is a smoker. They would be the absolute minimum. And then start building on that. What would be the really nice things to have? So is it running water? Is it having a fridge out there? Is it a drawer for cutlery so that all your barbecue utensils are there? Is it that you'd like a little cupboard to put all the oils and bits and pieces, and even your trays or dishes that you use specifically for the barbecue when you're bringing your meat inside or taking it to the outdoor table? Do you want to have your serviettes out there? So is there a set of cutlery that you use when you're outside rather than bringing your inside cutlery outside? Think about all those things and just keep building it. And, then you can start fleshing out, how much is this going to start costing me, or how much space have we got? Space is going to be a big, big consideration. It will often pare back things more often than not than the budget, because you may just not have the space to be able to have all these, all the cabinetry and all a smoker and a barbecue and a spit roast and all those sorts of things. Because spit roast is also something that can only really be done outside as well. And pizza oven, that's another one that's really, really popular, is having a built-in pizza oven. Now, that could be standalone, but it's also awesome to have those like a smoker, that they are also then part of integrated into that kitchen. So start with what is really critical for the space, the absolute must-have. And then, like when we talked about the briefing session way back, then what are the things that would be nice to have? And you can almost then formulate a table and a list of the things that fall into each of those categories. You don't need to have everything. Think about, there'll be a cost with every single component that you add. And that's why you need to start thinking about, what is then the budget. And if the budget is, $5,000, well, you're not going to then have a barbecue and a smoker and a pizza oven. Think about the space, because the space is going to be a premium. It may be attached to your house, and it's effectively then just the exterior wall that's blocking your interior kitchen with your external kitchen. It may be that standalone in another part of the garden. But you need then, it's what's going to add the most value to the space. And I'm not talking about a capitalization value. I'm talking about a lifestyle value of the space that you've got. Whether it's a metre, whether it's 2 metres, whether it's 3 metres outside, what is going to add the most value to you being able to cook outside? So it's not the value of, what is it going to cost and what's the capitalisation value. It's what's going to add the most value to you cooking outside. So it's a lifestyle value. So I want you to think about that. What are the components that are going to make a big difference for you? So whether it's a barbecue, it could be a hot plate that's going to be really valuable for you, the teppanyaki plate. Love cooking outdoor pizzas, or you love that the taste of those the pizza oven pizzas. They're quite different than cooking them in an oven inside. Or a hot plate may not be necessary for you because you're never going to need that. You don't do that style of cooking outside, but a smoker would be awesome, because that's the sort of cooking that you really like doing, you'd really like to experiment with. The spit roast. Our neighbour has a spit roast 2 or 3 times a year. Well, that would be absolutely fantastic for them. Teppanyaki plate may be a really useful thing for you. So think about the things that are going to add to your lifestyle about having those things outside. A sink may be really helpful, because then you can rinse as you go, or it's just having a tap for running water that people can, fill up their glasses, or that you can rinse things off, or you just need that outdoor running water. A fridge, that may actually be premium space, rather than just being able to walk inside and having, grabbing some drinks from inside and bringing them outside. Having that fridge may be a premium space that you want to be able to use for something else. So when you've got a tight space, you need to think about, what are some of the things that we could actually quite easily go inside for? What are some of the things that are going to add a lot of lifestyle value to us having that in our outdoor kitchen? It may not be necessary to have a pizza oven, because you really don't cook that much pizza. And so I go back to all the things I've been saying along the whole journey. Don't just put them in there because oh, well, up the road have got one, and well, we should have one as well. Or, well, it's going to add value to the house. Well, this is your forever house, remember, in a lot of instances. So you need to put in stuff that's going to really add to your lifestyle about cooking outside. A cutlery drawer may be really useful. Like I was talking about, you've got all the utensils that you use, all with regards to your barbecue, and a lot of those utensils are very different, and you could just have a whole set outside. Now that's really helpful. Or just as easily, when you bring out all the trays that you're going to be using to put all your meat on to take back inside, all your cutlery can be in there. So what is going to add the most value for you? It's also best to purchase the items that you're going to have in your outdoor kitchen prior to it being designed, particularly where they're a particular size, they're going to have particular features. If you've got all those and you know what they're going to be, it means then that it can be designed around those appliances. It's not like buying a standard oven, they're 600 or they're 900, things with regards to barbecues and whether they've got lids or they don't, and there's a spit and everything else. It's best to then get that purchased in advance so that all the bench tops and everything else can be designed around it. You need to consider as well that things are going to get much dirtier outside than what they are inside. So even if you've got closed cabinetry and all that sort of stuff, just dust and wind and storms and all that sort of stuff, even if you're undercover, it is still going to get grimy in there, and it's not going to be completely clean all the time. So if you have got designated cabinetry for utensils and plates, even you might have an outdoor dining setting that can permanently live outside in cabinetry, it may not always be clean. So think about that too, that this ideal of I will have everything outside may not actually work like that, just because you have to go back inside and clean it anyway. So that is something else to think about. Now, the location can also determine so many things. It's going to determine not only what your materials are, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but if it's a continuation, it will affect then perhaps it is a continuation of your current, the indoor kitchen. You've just got the exterior wall and then it keeps going. It may be completely separate in the garden. That's also quite common, that you've got a paved area that is completely designated for the outdoor kitchen, and the link with your interior kitchen is quite separated. But you need to create that flow and continuity with what's going on inside, particularly when there is that just the wall that is basically separating those two. If it's out in the garden, you may have the same tones going on, but it doesn't need to be the exact same material as what's going on in your interior kitchen. And if it's separate from the house, you may need to build separate canopies that go over the top. You may want to have areas that are open so that when you're cooking, it's not actually undercover, because that smoke is effectively going to then alter your, the interior ceiling. If you do have it undercover, the smoke and the marking of the ceiling, and also just exhausting out. So if you are sort of in an alfresco that's is enclosed by 3 walls, which I never advise anyway. You need at least 2 walls open, ideally 3, that you're open on 3 sides, but ideally 2. You need to be at least open on 2 sides rather than just 1, because otherwise you feel very enclosed. It gets quite hot in there anyway. But then when you're cooking under there as well, and you've got all those aromas from the cooking, you really will need to have an exhaust as well, just to get that smell out. But if it is exterior, you may also then need to think about having a separate firewall. There are regulations that you'll need to meet to make sure that you're meeting all the health and safety and building regulations. So it's not just a matter of plunking a barbecue anywhere. When you've got gas points that will need to run somewhere from the house into the garden to set up this area for you to be able to cook. So the regulations will also determine that, your safety regulations, but also the regulations around materials and what can be done outside will also need to be considered. So you'll need to check your local state regulations for that. So bench tops. Now that we're going to talk about materials, not all materials are equal. So the materials that you've been considering for your internal kitchen may not be able to go outside. So, for example, reconstituted stone is not suitable for outdoors. yeah, sure, you might want to put it out there and you think, well, it's stone, but the warranty is going to be voided if you're using any materials that are actually not got, they haven't been regulated for being outside. It's got a high amount of resin, and that is why it's not allowed outside. So it's just not suitable for being outside. So reconstituted stone, which is a really popular product for internal kitchens, you're not going to then be able to use the same one outside. Now, why is this so important to what you're doing from an interior perspective? If, for example, you do have your kitchen and then exactly outside on the same wall, you've then got this one big line, your interior kitchen, exterior wall, and then your outdoor kitchen is running along the same wall. From a continuity perspective, would be really nice to use the same materials, the same bench top. You've just got that one big flow. And if you're using reconstituted stone inside, you can't then use that outside for the reasons I've just explained. So it may mean then that if you do want that seamless look with the bench, because you've really only got a pane of glass that's separating them, you may then have to choose a different material for the interior that is also then going to be suitable for outside. So that's the impact. And that is the other reason why I advise that it's really, really worthwhile and really thinking about what are your materials going to be for both so that you understand the knock-on effect. So don't leave the kitchen, the outdoor kitchen, to an afterthought for this reason, particularly if you want that continual flow of materials running inside and outside. Now, the cabinetry is a bit of a different story because many of the cabinetry materials are not going to be suitable outside that you'd be using inside. But you can choose something that looks similar if you do want to make sure that you've got that continuity. So let's just finish off on the bench tops. Reconstituted stone is not suitable, so that's out. So you can look at Decton because it's indestructible. You can use it anywhere, so that's going to work. Natural stone will work. Concrete, so free-formed concrete is really popular for an outdoor kitchen. And also porcelain products, porcelain bench tops, marine grain stainless steel can be used, and terrazzo. So there's lots and lots of materials that you can use, and there's nothing to say, even if you do have one big long length of wall that is indoor kitchen and outdoor kitchen, there's nothing to say that those materials can't be different. They certainly need to talk to each other. There needs to be a relationship between them. You need to be using them from the similar tone family. But it's not to say that it must be the same. But I suppose I'm just highlighting to you, if you are that sort of person that likes it like that, then you need to think about what's going on inside and outside before you start getting it all finished and designed. But you may, for example, have an indoor bench top that is stainless steel, and then outside you might want to have freeform concrete. It's going to look fantastic. There's nothing to say you can't do that. So, but it just needs to be carefully considered. Now, with regards to our cabinetry, you cannot use standard cabinetry materials outside. So you can't use standard laminate, you can't use melamine, and you can't use timber. So Nav Urban, for example, you can't use that either outside. They're just got a different finish. Now, yes, some people may go and install them and have no issues, but you will void the warranty. So they're just not as durable for outside. They're not designed to be absolutely hammered by storms and hail. And you'll find even if it is undercover in an al fresco, it's a little bit more protected. But you know what it's like when you've got a storm. It's just going to go everywhere regardless, particularly when we had the horizontal rain that hits us from time to time. Nothing's going to be protected from that sort of weather. So look at marine grade ply. That works really well. Other natural materials will also work well because they're natural materials. So you could have solid timber cabinetry. You know, it may grey off. You may need to treat it if you want to maintain the colour. But also compact laminate. That is the product that is really designed for fantastic for outdoor kitchens. You can get them in block colours or you can get a timber look. So like I was talking about before, you might be having dark cabinetry inside, for example, and you can't use the same product outside. You may try and get something that looks similar, but it might then be in a compact laminate. It will never look the same. So compact laminate is it's very, very, very dense. And that's why it's suitable for outside. Now, the other thing to consider is you may not need to have a completely custom-made outdoor kitchen. Now, it's clearly going to give you a lot of flexibility. The finish is going to be superior. It's going to look like it's meant to be there, just like an indoor kitchen. But you can actually buy outdoor kitchen sets from barbecue suppliers and the Bunnings and all that sort of stuff. And so in a big, long, they're generally stainless steel, you know, and they can be enormous, and they've got the sink and they've got the barbecue and they've got cabinetry, and basically everything is there. It's just the length that you're buying, and you'll need to plumb it in and all that sort of stuff. So they may not fit the space ideally. It may not be the look that you're after. It's certainly a very, very different look than if everything's built in and custom made. So they are generally all that stainless steel. And the note on stainless steel is not all stainless steel is the same. It's like when we're talking about sinks, that the grades of stainless steel are different. And so when you're looking at stainless steel, if you want it to be outside, you really need marine grade stainless steel. It's a different level of stainless steel and it won't rust. And I know that sounds crazy. How can stainless steel rust? Well, stainless steel, your standard grade stainless steel, is not really designed for being outside. And so over time, it will eventually rust. So you need marine grade stainless steel for it not to rust. So this is the same for outdoor taps. You need to make sure that you're using marine grade. It just is a higher grade, and it won't rust. And that's why they use it on boats, and that's why it's called marine grade. So a lot of those kitchens you'll need to check, are they marine grade stainless steel? And if they are just standard stainless steel, of course, yes, marine grade stainless steel will be more expensive. Then expect that, particularly if it's out in the open and not necessarily undercover at all, that you will actually have over time, it'll probably end up rusting at some stage in some of the weaker points of the areas of construction, or where it gets hammered by the storms and the rain. So keep that in mind. But that could be a really economical way. We're talking about a few $1,000s, and look, some of them can be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for these big, long 4-meter outdoor kitchens, off the shelf. But that might be a way for you to get all the things that you need, and it's a little more cost effective than get something custom made. It's going to come down to the aesthetic that you're after, the requirements that you have from a needs perspective, how you're going to use it, where's it going to be. They're more generally designed for being under an alfresco rather than out in the garden. So think about all of those things, but that may be a way that you can get around having a more cost-effective option. I suppose the key takeaway here is don't leave it as an afterthought. Like with all your landscaping and everything else, I always say when you're planning your home, you need to think about the landscaping at planning stage, not when you've moved in. So it's exactly the same for an outdoor kitchen. Be mindful, how's it all going to work? And how's it going to be designed, and what do you need? Because the knock-on effect of you getting it right will affect your materials. It may even affect what you're doing inside. Even something like having a servery window, you want that seamless look. It's going to affect the materials that you're choosing for the internal kitchen, because if it's going to then run outside as well, it'll need to be weatherproof. So you're not going to be able to use reconstituted stone. So as with everything, the planning is critical, and the detail is in the planning. So I hope that's given you some food for thought. And as always, you start with what you need, and maybe you then start adding to your wish list. Next week, I'm going to be doing a sum up of everything, and it's a really awesome recap, and it'll be just really good insight on, all the things you need to know about your kitchen sort of in one episode. It's 21 episodes, so it's so much information, and had so many people contact me about just, wow, I had no idea there was just so much involved. So it's just blows my mind, because I never thought it was going to get to so many episodes, and it just has. So thanks for joining on the journey of designing your kitchen. Don't forget about the Beautiful Kitchen Design Made Easy online course. That is going to give you just those added extra tools, the ability to print off all the transcripts from the podcast, so you can make your own notes and really highlight the areas that are very applicable to you. It's only $99. And you'll get, professionally designed resources that go with it. And so it's a great investment to make sure that you're able to, plan out your own kitchen with the resources that we actually use with our clients. So that's available at whitepebbleinteriors.com.au/courses. And so I'll be here next week, next Thursday, for the final episode of the Kitchen Design Essentials season. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Forever Home. If you're ready to renovate or build a new home and you need help to create a beautiful and functional forever home, you can book a chat with me directly at whitepebbleinteriors.com.au/chat. Have a great day.